I was kicked out as a teen due to false rumors my brother spread. Now, years later, my parents want money from me after abandoning me. I'm a 28-year-old woman with a twin brother, and our experiences growing up couldn't have been more different. My parents always seemed convinced he was destined for greatness, while I was labeled the black sheep for being more interested in sports and socializing than academics. Their constant comparisons crushed my self-esteem. I had to watch my brother enjoy lavish birthday parties while I felt like an afterthought. He had friends over all the time, while I wasn't even allowed to invite anyone home. Honestly, I hated my childhood, with the exception of my grandmother, who would bring me my favorite chocolates and slip me a few dollars during her visits. As time went on, the favoritism toward my brother turned into emotional abuse directed at me. My parents mocked my grades and belittled my interests, making it seem like I could never measure up to their expectations. Although I excelled in sports, they wouldn't let me join any teams, insisting I focus solely on academics, just like my brother. It left me feeling frustrated and powerless. In my sophomore year, I got grounded yet again, this time for downloading Snapchat. I hadn't done anything wrong, I just wanted to connect with my friends. To my parents, it was a huge violation of their trust. I'm sorry to hear you had to go through that. Here's a rewritten version without the negative language. They had forbidden me from communicating with my friends, and it felt like everything was turned upside down. They scattered my belongings around the room, took the doors off their hinges, and made it clear that I would have no privacy as long as I lived under their roof. Watching my parents treat me this way was painful, and instead of supporting me, my twin brother made things harder. The toxic environment created by our parents' actions allowed him to take advantage of the situation. He often lied about me, falsely accusing me of things I never did to escape responsibility. If he took something, he would easily shift the blame to me, and since our parents were already inclined to believe the worst about me, they accepted his lies without question. He would belittle me in front of my friends at school and make fun of my appearance. Despite this, I had a wide circle of friends because I was approachable and open to making connections. My twin, however, struggled socially and began to resent my ability to talk to people. This jealousy peaked during our 14th birthday party when no one showed up for him. I don't know why his friends didn't come, but my friends took me out for ice cream, and I had a wonderful day, which only made my brother angrier. To retaliate, he started spreading false rumors at school, portraying me as a spoiled brat and falsely claiming that I was hurting him at home, suggesting our parents favored him. Unbeknownst to me, he took things further by injuring himself to create evidence of my supposed violence. The next day, he would come to school with visible marks, confidently claiming they were proof of my actions, and he would make up stories whenever our parents questioned him. He would claim his injuries were from innocent activities, like playing football with friends. His lies about getting black eyes gained traction, and soon people started to believe his twisted version of events. Whispers circulated, and even my friends began to look at me with suspicion. At first, I noticed subtle changes. Friends who used to chat with me in the hallways grew distant, and invitations to group hangouts dwindled. It felt like a switch had flipped. Suddenly, I was seen as a spoiled girl accused of violence. Finally, I gathered the courage to ask my ex-best friend what had changed between us. She revealed that my twin brother had been spreading rumors about me, detailing lies that accused me of things I'd never done. I was stunned, caught in a mix of disbelief and betrayal. My own brother, someone I'd grown up with, was fabricating stories that painted me in a terrible light. It was a betrayal that cut deep, leaving me with a knot in my stomach. The next day at school, I confronted him, but he ignored me. I begged him to stop lying, but he just smirked and told me I deserved to rot alone. I was at a loss for words. His behavior was unsettling, and I feared talking to my parents. What if they believed him over me? The isolation stung, especially since I had always been open to making friends. It felt like my brother's jealousy-fueled lies were tearing apart the connections I had built. Even teachers began to catch wind of the rumors. It was surreal, as if I were trapped in a parallel reality. My true self was buried beneath the malicious narrative spun by my own twin. The lies had escalated beyond mere teenage gossip, shaping how people saw me. Soon the nasty rumors reached the principal's ears, and my worst fear materialized. He called my brother and me into his office, along with our parents, to discuss the allegations. My heart raced as he demanded the truth. I hoped my brother would finally come clean, but instead he doubled down on the lies, telling the principal that the rumors were true. He painted me as a bully who attacked him when our parents weren't around. I was stunned. Shock flooded me as he spun this twisted tale, claiming I was angry because he received more love from our parents. It was all a web of falsehoods, yet he clung to his story like it was gospel. My mum began to cry, holding on to him as if he were a hero. My dad tried to comfort my brother, praising him for his bravery and promising to protect him. Desperately, I pleaded with the principal, insisting it was all fabricated. I felt like I was drowning in accusations, struggling to reach the surface while my brother kept insisting I was this angry, violent person. My mum's tears flowed as she looked at me with suspicion, as if I were the villain in this narrative. The principal scolded me sternly, stating that the school had zero tolerance for bullying and that I could be suspended. I begged him not to, but he shook his head, saying he couldn't ignore the situation. I pleaded with him, tears streaming down my face, trying to explain that I hadn't done anything to my brother. The principal firmly stated that I would be suspended for 10 days to serve as a warning against bullying. It hit me hard, and I began crying even more, desperately asking him to reconsider. My parents, feeling angry and embarrassed by the situation, pulled me out of the principal's office. I didn't want to leave. I wanted to make them understand my side, but they wouldn't listen. When we got home, everything changed. My dad suddenly started packing my belongings. I was shocked and confused, unsure of what was happening. My mum asked him what he was doing, but he shouted that he couldn't let me live in the same house as my brother anymore. I fell to my knees, pleading with my brother to tell them the truth, but he remained distant and unaffected. My dad continued to pack, throwing my suitcase into the foyer. I clung to his legs, begging him not to throw me out. It felt like a nightmare unfolding. He told me that someone like me didn't deserve to stay in his home and that he would call my grandmother to come and pick me up. It felt like my world was crumbling. I stood there in shock, surrounded by my things, feeling completely lost. Eventually, my grandmother arrived. She helped gather my belongings and placed them in the car, making sure I was buckled in before heading to my parents' front door. She rang the doorbell, and when my dad opened it, she began to speak firmly to him. With firm determination, she warned him that if he ever approached or contacted me again, she wouldn't hesitate to involve the police or child services. What he had done to a child like me could lead to serious consequences. My mother tried to deflect blame, claiming it was my fault, but my grandmother stood her ground, defending me. She emphasized that I was just a child who didn't deserve such treatment. It was the first time I truly felt my grandmother's strength. She didn't back down to my parents and trusted me when they wouldn't. Eventually, we drove away, leaving behind my childhood home. The pain I felt was indescribable. I remember crying on the bed and refusing to eat, despite my grandmother's encouragement. I confided in her about what my brother had done, and she was shocked. She reassured me that she believed me, and I was grateful to have at least one person on my side. W. When my suspension ended, returning to school felt like stepping into a lion's den. As I walked through the familiar hallways, the judgment in my classmates' faces was palpable. Whispers and sidelong glances surrounded me. The weight of the false accusations lingered heavily in the air. Meanwhile, my brother ignored me completely, aligning himself with those who believed his version of events and saw him as the victim. No matter how much I tried to share my side, no one would listen. I became an outcast, carrying an unjust label that followed me everywhere I went. In the cafeteria and hallways, the glances I received were filled with disdain and mistrust. I became a loner, keeping my head down, attending classes, eating lunch alone, and heading straight home. With no friends and a sense that everyone wished I weren't there, I often felt isolated. Throughout this time, my parents never checked in on me. My grandmother would remind me that none of this was my fault and that life would get better eventually. I graduated high school with good grades, hopeful for a brighter future in college. It was there that I first tasted true freedom. No one was watching over me, comparing grades, or competing with me. I found myself among like-minded people and began to forge friendships, despite the emotional and physical scars from my past. I focused on leaving that all behind and embracing the college experience. During this time, I discovered my passion for content writing. Though I had always dreamed of being a writer, I worried it wouldn't be a sustainable career. So I initially set that dream aside, but to earn some extra money, I began freelancing. I signed up on various platforms and soon secured jobs from prominent clients, gradually building a portfolio. Throughout college, I maintained this side hustle without asking my parents for a dime. After graduating, instead of pursuing a corporate job, I realized I could turn content writing into a full-time career. With multiple clients and long-term professional relationships, I was doing well, securing a steady flow of projects and embracing my newfound path as a freelancer. My career has not only made me financially independent, but has also allowed me to explore the world as a digital nomad. Traveling has been a healing journey for me, though it certainly wasn't easy. I saved diligently and took a leap of faith on myself. Over the years, I've seen so much of the world, yet there's still so much more to explore. The only person I truly considered family during this time was my grandmother, whom I adored. She was sad when I moved out, but understood my need for independence. Despite my busy schedule, I made it a priority to be there for her. I often visited on weekends, sharing meals, or simply sitting on the porch, engrossed in conversations that spanned from childhood tales to recent events. I dedicated entire afternoons to helping her with chores or taking leisurely walks in the local park. Recently, I completed one of the most significant projects of my career. While I can't disclose the brand, I was fortunate to write blogs and product descriptions for them. After finishing the project, I asked my team for positive reviews on my website, and they gladly obliged. I captured some of their feedback to share on my Instagram, especially since I had also been invited to a TV show. This is how my relatives and cousins began to learn about my success. My parents had never discussed my career, so they were unaware that I was working with popular brands and getting TV invitations. Word started to spread within the family, and I suspected my parents had finally caught wind of my achievements. As just a few days later, while working on another project, I noticed my phone buzzing with messages. Once I finished my work and checked my phone, I was startled to see 6 missed calls from my mum. It had been ages since she last reached out, so I couldn't grasp why she was calling. Hesitantly, I returned her call and she picked up right away. I asked if everything was okay, and she started congratulating me. My dad, likely right there with her, joined in, asking about my life. I answered their questions without much thought, but things took a turn when they started asking about my income. I told them that was none of their business, and my dad insisted that since we were family, I shouldn't hesitate to share. I mentioned I was doing well financially, and that's when my mom shifted the conversation. She began talking about how hard their lives had become, saying, "We've been wanting to renovate the house for a while now. It's not in great shape, but we have no savings left." I replied, "Okay," and she added, "Your success has given us hope after watching your TV interview. We thought maybe you could help us out with the renovations." Dad chimed in, "After all, we are family. You shouldn't hesitate to share some of your earnings with us. We really need your help." I couldn't believe it. "Are you joking? Why are you asking me for money after years of silence? I appreciate the congratulations, but I'm not going to help you out." My mom then accused me of being unsupportive, insisting that I needed to step up. My dad insisted that, as my parents, they deserved care and support, and that it was the least I could do. I was furious and wanted to confront them, but then I thought of a better approach. Instead of just arguing, I'd teach them a lesson for thinking they could rely on me after how they'd treated me. I told them I was willing to help, but only if they met my demands. Curious, my dad asked what I wanted. Without hesitation, I laid it out. If they wanted my help, they had to publicly acknowledge that my brother was the one behind the hurtful rumors that damaged my reputation. I wanted them to humiliate him the way they had humiliated me by believing his lies. They needed to take responsibility for the pain they caused. My dad questioned why such an admission was necessary, while my mum insisted we could resolve this privately. But I stood firm. This condition was non-negotiable. As the tension grew, my dad raised his voice, asserting that it was my duty to support my family in need. My mum, desperate, urged me to do the right thing, reminding me of all the years they raised me. I found their sudden appeal ironic, reminding them that they had kicked me out and it was my grandmother who had actually raised me. Their agitation increased, but I held my ground. I'm standing firm. If my parents want to reconnect and seek my financial help, they need to publicly acknowledge the truth, and my brother must face consequences for his actions. Since our last conversation, my parents have been calling me non-stop, but I've been ignoring them. I'm starting to regret calling them back that day. I wonder if I'd really be in a difficult situation if I chose not to help them at all. Update. It's been an eventful week since I shared my story, and the support I've received has been overwhelming. It's comforting to know I'm not alone. Everyone agrees that I shouldn't engage with my parents or consider helping them after everything they've put me through. I set my conditions, knowing they were unlikely to comply. Their loyalty to my brother runs deep, and despite any realizations they might have about his lies, I doubt they'd ever hold him accountable as they did with me. Today, my brother sent me a nasty text after my parents tried to contact me again. He wrote, "Hey sis, it's been a long time. Honestly, every day without you has been great. I heard mom and dad reached out and you gave them an ultimatum. They're never going to follow through. They never loved you and will never do anything to hurt me. I admit I lied about you 15 years ago, but it's been a long time. Stop being selfish and move on. You're unmarried and don't have kids, so why won't you help with their repairs and renovations? You should do the right thing and be a better daughter." That message felt like a stab to my chest. The audacity to dismiss my struggles and the boundaries I set spoke volumes about his lack of empathy. The attempt to guilt-trip me by highlighting my unmarried and childless status only added to the insensitivity. His implication that I should prioritize their needs over my own well-being was not just offensive. It showed how little he thought of me. Frustrated and determined to seek justice, I decided to share my truth. I wrote an email to my parents and close relatives detailing the painful experiences of my childhood and the unfair treatment I endured while growing up in their house. I described the oppressive environment and how differently my twin brother and I were treated. I also addressed the malicious false rumors he spread about me at school, which severely impacted my reputation. I wrote about how my parents had abandoned me, and without my grandmother's help, I might not have made it. Towards the end, I included a screenshot of a message from my brother where he admitted to lying about me. It was a clear confession that I hoped would finally expose the truth. I sent the email just an hour ago, and I know chaos will ensue once my parents and brother read it. I'll keep you updated on how my family reacts. It's been a month since my last update, and quite a bit has happened. As you can imagine, my family reacted strongly to the email I sent. My parents faced criticism from relatives who weren't aware of the favoritism and emotional abuse going on. Many family members reached out to apologize for not being there for me. Unfortunately, my brother and parents bombarded me with increasingly abusive and violent messages, which led me to consult a lawyer. They sent a cease and desist letter warning my family to stop contacting me or face serious legal consequences. This seems to have done the trick, as they have stopped reaching out. My grandmother has been incredibly supportive throughout this. She believes I did the right thing by speaking out, and her support means the world to me. Fast forward to 2 months later, and I'm happy to report that life is going well. My content writing business is thriving, and I've received numerous invitations to speak at seminars and podcasts, which has really established my reputation in the field. I've also cherished my time with my grandmother. I took a break from work to spend quality time with her, learning about gardening and enjoying moments filled with good food and heartfelt conversations. These are some of my favorite memories. Since the lawyer's letter, my family has not reached out, and I'm relieved to have that distance. On a personal note, I've started therapy to help me work through everything, and I'm hopeful about the progress I'll make. As I focus on my healing journey, I believe this will be my final update for now.